I have to say, it's hard to not root for Gaolang in this chapter. You can tell he's putting his heart and soul into basically this entire match, right? And it's not that Agito isn't per se, but you can tell there's that huge difference in motivation between them. Because I want people to remember, Gaolang probably fought Garuda just a few minutes or hours ago. Like, that damage, as we see later on in this chapter, sort of carries over, and the same would go for Agito as well with his fight against Gaolang Donaire. This has been a marathon of a fight for both fighters basically, and they're just one victory away from being, you know, the champion. And hey, it seems as though Gaolang may have become the champion of this tournament, but let's go into the chapter itself. Let's break it down first, starting off with what the title of this chapter is, and it is called As His Sword. This clearly refers to Gaolang here. He is the sword of Rama, but we kick off from where we left off in the last chapter, and that was when Agito launched a dragon shot towards the lower part of Gaolang's chest while he was deflecting the god glow from Gaolang. Now, that was a pretty genius move because I think Agito really did nick out to defeat by doing this. If the god glow had landed directly on his face, things would have been pretty bad. But he made that risky play, and yeah, it seems to have landed. But as it's sort of landing, the unthinkable happens. Like, I would not believe it if I hadn't seen it, but Gaolang uses the formless style to basically dodge out of an attack that's already hit him. So he's sort of not taking the full impact of Agito's dragon shot by doing this. So he uses the formless and he unleashes. In the drafts, it's a right punch, but on the official chapter, it is a left hook, or it looks like a left hook on Agito's face, since that was the face that was just straight up open at that point. And Agito, he gets sent back by the strike. Of course, this is a strike from Gaolang. He goes back a bit, and so does Gaolang. They sort of gain distance against one another while they are both reeling from pain. And Yamashita is there in the stands with Akiyama, and Yamashita is like, holy moly, like Gaolang just used the formless. Seems like he's trying to copy it from what he's seen Agito do a lot of the time, so he's not good with it at all. And we do see when he's, you know, going back, he is holding the chest area where the dragon shot landed, so it did do damage to Gaolang, probably a lot of damage, but not as much as what probably would have taken him out of the fight, or at the very least resulted in Agito having a huge advantage. And this goes to show, like, yeah, Gaolang's aptitude for fighting is pretty big actually. It's almost like, it's not quite like it, but it's almost like when Oma copied Gaolang going limp towards his neck joints. Although in Oma's case, he almost could completely copy what Gaolang did, no issues. So clearly Oma has more aptitude because of course he is literally the clone of Shen Wulong the connector, right? Comparing Gaolang to him is a bit unfair, but let's cut back to the fight itself, and it is at this point where we get a panel of both Agito and Gaolang, and we get to see the types of damage or what is currently affecting them in this fight, because they've taken a step back, but now the narrator is also further adding to why they seem to be so tired and damaged, because this is very important to establish, and that is the fact that Gaolang still has that exhaustion that he had when he fought against Garuda. Now, he did take some damage from Garuda, but that doesn't seem to be carrying over as much. It's more so the tension and how Gaolang was moving in that fight. It was just a high stress situation for him, and it doesn't seem like he had enough time to recover, because this is all happening on the same day. Like, these fights are quick, they're happening basically almost back to back for these fighters, And combine that with the dragon shot that Gaolang just took from Agito. Yeah, Gaolang has taken a lot of damage. He's probably going to be starting to run out of gas at this point. Like, as we can see, like in the page, he's seemingly starting to gas out. He's just not in his best condition right now. But this also confirms that Justin did next to nothing to Gaolang, at least to the extent that it would affect him in this fight, which is lucky for Gaolang actually. But on the other hand, yeah, Agito's not doing so hard as well because of his recent fight with Gaolang. So he has all the injuries that came from that fight, as well as all the striking attacks he's taken from Gaolang that's taken a toll on him, the multiple headshots that he took from the inevitable elbow and I think the invisible elbows as well. Like, he has taken a lot of damage. I would say this kind of goes to show how tanky Agito is, because yeah, Gaolang has not really taken that much damage, at least in comparison to Agito. So I would say probably a good case for saying that Agito has higher durability, or that the dragon shot just did that much damage, because yeah, that's just how it was. But with that, both of them are still pressing on despite the damage, the accumulation of taking part on in basically what is a pseudo ghoul ritual. This is like a moral ghoul ritual essentially, because I don't think they've done this as much, even in the Berserker Bowl tournament. And what I mean by that is that it seems like there was a bit more wait time in Berserker Bowl between matches. And of course, they didn't have to face that many top tiers, right? But despite that, both of them are pressing forward, and you can tell the intensity in Gaolang's eyes. He's like, yes, let's go. Gaolang has it on his mind that he has to win, basically. And we transition over to a flashback of Gaolang, of course, still fighting in his underground fighting arena back in his poverty-stricken village. And this flashback is where we see he meets Rama, but this is the previous Rama, so Rama's predecessor basically. He meets Gaolang, he recognizes his talent, and he's like, hey look, we'll give you this opportunity, you know what, come on aboard on this ship, you know, it is what it is. And with that, Gaolang went on, and it seems like he was able to provide for his family. He was able to do all the stuff that was so hard to do while he was doing underground fighting. But as he stayed as what I'm assuming is his bodyguard, the old Rama sort of passes away, and his new predecessor, which is the current Rama that we have right now, is basically the new person that Gaolang was guarding. And so Gaolang's in sort of an interesting position, because if he had a good relationship against the old Rama, of course he seems like he did, he was very thankful for what he did for him, he would basically have a greater responsibility for making his kid proud and taking care and protecting his kid, which is the new Rama. And this just goes to show this is more than just fighting for Gaolang. He is basically doing this for Rama himself. He says he is His Majesty's sword, Rama's sword basically, and that comes first before his identity as a fighter. But with that, we go on to the fight itself. They're charging at each other, and both of them basically, they both use their elbow strikes to the face, and they just go for a slugfest basically. With Agito, he's sort of surprised because he's like, man, Gaolang, he's just taking these hits. He kind of knows that Gaolang isn't really that tanky, but he has that morale boost, because not only has he lost to Agito, but he also wants to, you know, make Rama proud, in you know, to put it another way. But Agito, he seems to kind of be losing this close range encounter at first, but then we cut over to Medel for a bit, and Medel is noticing to the fact that, yeah, Gaolang is in Agito's range here. And that is within the elbow range basically, right? Because they both charged each other and came into a range within they could use their elbow strikes. And this is actually kind of good for Agito because, yeah, from the last chapter, we know he sacrificed part of his left forearm. So using straight punches and stuff like that, it's not to Agito's advantage. But Gaolang is taking advantage of that and kind of taking the fight to Agito in this domain. So they're basically going to be staying within close quarters combat because this is where Agito wants to be. This is where Gaolang is going to take the fight as well. And we cut back to them. They're still, going at each other. They're not even guarding at this point. And there is just blow after blow for both fighters. And Yamashita is like, man, they are also kind of dodging a little bit, but they're only, making sure that their vitals are not hit, as well as probably looking out for basically their strong technique. Like Agito's probably looking out for the God Glow, and Gaolang, he's gonna be looking out for the Dragon Shot, right? While they are just striking at one another, they'll probably not be giving each other much of an inch to pull off their bigger moves, and basically this has turned into a tanking contest. At least sort of. But Gaolang, he seems to be winning outright in this slug contest because he gets a right hook clean on Agito's head, and yeah, he goes reeling back a bit. And Gaolang, of course, he's pressing on. He's not allowing him to go, back again, right? Like, there's no dodging out of this situation. Gaolang wants to end this here, but then Gaolang, he sort of goes a little low and uses his head as he's going up to meet Agito's chin, causing another concussion to Agito. Like, Agito is not having a good time here because a similar thing happened to him against Gaolang. A similar thing also happened to him against Garuda as well. What's also interesting is that, well, maybe I'm stretching it, but something similar did happen between him when he was fighting Kuroki, at least the final few moments of the fight, where Kuroki hits Agito in the chin, but that's not exactly the same thing. I'm stretching it here. But either way, the impact from that causes his brain to get concussed and he starts reeling back as well. And with that, he is wide open. Agito is wide open and Gaolang takes that opportunity, and you can just tell the narrator is hyped for him. He calls him the Thai God of War, the Avatar of Garuda, the Sword of Rama. He's just giving him all of the names now, and it's like he lands another strike. I don't think it's a God Glow. I think it's just a straight punch, a strong one, at probably the worst possible moment for Agito, and he's coughing out blood as well. That is not a good sign, but what's also not a good sign is that that's the end of the chapter. Which brings us to a very interesting scenario, because as you've noticed, most of this chapter, in fact I would argue the past two chapters, have been pro Gaolang agenda. If you've had your stocks on Gaolang, they're sky high. In fact, if we only saw the victory, title pop up, that would have been the best day a Gaolang fan could have ever had. This week could have been an awesome week. But the fact that we didn't now brings concern, because that means that this fight isn't necessarily done yet. Now, what that could mean, it could mean that Agito just, does something new, evolves even further, like he was in Ashura or something like that. Or, since we've seen this happen before, Agito goes unconscious kinda, but is still fighting. But, I'm gonna be honest, there's also the chance that we just might see Agito lose next chapter. Like, he falls down, he rolls on the arena, and the fight is completely called. That is another way that I think this could end. But it really does depend on whether or not Agito he needs a leg up against Gaolang somehow. And nothing that he has in his arsenal, at least besides the twin, dragon shot, nothing has seemed to have worked out too well for him. Maybe we will see the twin dragon shot again in this fight. Maybe that's the last thing we see. But yeah,
I'm still as conflicted as ever. I think there's a good chance that we might see Agito pull out a win from the jaws of defeat, because this looks like defeat. Or Gaolang, he gets his sweet old revenge, and that's it. But yeah, that's the review. Don't forget to like and sub, and until next time, take it easy.